meeting to order. I just want to explain to you folks, our regular council meeting is at 7:30. So you get to sit through a council discussion from now for about that next 20 minutes or half hour. So be patient with us. It was a discussion that we had started last meeting, and like I said, we normally start at 7:30, but we wanted to come in early and try to flesh out some of this other discussion. So please be patient with us, and we'll get there quickly, okay? Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming, first of all. It's good to see an audience. We normally don't have an audience, but glad you all came. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Bachman?
Here.
Henning?
Here.
Gorman?
Here.
Merkel? Kelly?
Here.
Lieberman?
Here.
And Stevens.
Here.
I move to excuse Mr. Merkel until he arrives. Second.
Motion to excuse Mr. Merkel temporarily, we hope, for now, by Mr. Henning, second by Mr. Gorman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, he's excused, and he'll hopefully, okay, he's here now. Forget everything I said about Mr. Merkel not being here. He's here now. Okay, so just to kind of tee this up so you folks know what's going on here, and then I'm going to turn it over to some other folks here. We're talking about revenue discussions for the city. And I realize it's probably not the right format to throw it out here to you folks, but I think it'll be a good way for you to see some of the things that we talk about when it comes to funding the city. Basically, in short order, we don't know the exact time frame, we're going to be short on money. It's just like the schools were, and just like other cities. You see these tax levies, and you see different ways that cities are funded. We get a lot of we try to keep the services up. We're trying to move everything forward in the city, but nothing's getting cheaper, as you know, and it's really chewing into our general fund. So just so you kind of get the perspective of what we're talking about here. There's nothing on the ballot or nothing that we're voting on tonight. It's just a general discussion, and down the road, if you have issues or ideas or some way that we can better our use of spending and things like that, we're always open to getting an email or getting a phone call. None of us up here are opposed to that. As a matter of fact, we encourage that. So, okay, so I'm going to turn this over, Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you'll recall, back on April 4th at our meeting, during the work session, Mr. Henning had requested that we look at precinct data for the city of Clayton and look at the most recent data, which would have been from last Tuesday, which isn't prepared yet. So what I did is I went through and I pulled all of the elections that have been held here outside of city council elections. So school levies and then the levies that the city has put on. And it is broken out by precincts, so you can take a look at the different precincts here in Clayton. The first thing in your packet is a map of all of the precincts, so you know where everything is. And then you have for the most part, most of the precincts here in the city of Clayton have been very supportive of school levies, and they have also been supportive of the city levies for police and fire that have been put on. With the 2017 permanent levy, all precincts being in favor of the permanent levy for police and fire. So with that information, I'm going to turn it over to council for discussion if you want to have further discussion on that.
I do want to make one comment. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think this is all public information.
It is.
So if anyone wants to, you can look at the same numbers that we're looking at up here. You just have to go on the Board of Elections site.
It's on the Board of Elections site.
Yeah, so, because it may not, if you talk about numbers, it may not make sense if you're not looking at the document. So, okay, so anyone want to start this off? Kevin's not here, so I don't know how we start this. We talked about what we're going to do in the future as far as future monies, and we kicked around some things. We talked about possibly maybe raising the tax rate and doing away with the 50% credit. I think that would make a lot of people happy, me included. But it wouldn't be. We couldn't do that without without making a raise. We couldn't just take it away, because I think it equals out to about, I think Kevin said about $800,000, something like that. So it's a big number. So, and then we talked about, additional monies, which I think we saw with the Northmont levy. I think, just about everybody's, doesn't want to hear that. But so we need to try to start putting our heads together and making a plan for what we're going to do down the road to continue to fund the city at the same levels that we are currently. So anyone else want to throw out any ideas?
I mean, I would just say that I know the mayor and I talked earlier today, and he knows where I stand in regards to increasing it to an amount where we can restore the tax credit. I think it's something the residents would appreciate, and it would ensure, financial stability for both police and fire. I really think the residents would support it. Police and fire funding is down, so restoring the tax credit, but getting the police and fire the money they need is extremely important.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, are those our two largest expenditures?
They are. Those are our two largest transfers.
Expenditures.
Mm-hmm. Yes, transfers from the general fund into police and fire.
Any other comments or input?
Mayor, maybe you could put into context a little bit why this is something that we have to discuss, and why it is of some necessity to do it soon. I don't remember the figures. I don't have them before me, but my recollection is that what we were talking about, what we were given by Kevin, is that our general fund is going to be depleted in 2 years. Mm-hmm. And after that, we would have to cut services, we'd have to cut dramatically based upon the population that we have in Clayton, which is one of the reasons why development is also important, to increase that population, to increase our tax revenue, so that we don't have to have such drastic cuts in the future. And so that's part of the context that we're dealing with here in trying to figure all this out.
I don't think I need to say anything. I think you just said it all. That was good. But when you talk about we have some housing developments under construction right now, which is good, and it's all every bit helps. But we really need businesses to come in. The city of Clayton gets very little of your property tax money. We get about 14 cents on the dollar. So it's not like, I wish it all came to us. It would be a lot easier for us to manage things, but it doesn't. And that's why you see cities scrambling around. Again, I think the inflation has really hurt us. For us to rely and be totally sustainable without additional monies, we're going to need a lot of businesses. And one of the problems that we have in Clayton, and we all know this, and I think everyone here and everyone in the room knows it, is that we don't have very much business. We have quite a bit of residential development, and we have a lot of rural development, but we don't have much business. And business is what supports communities going forward. It's what supports a growing community. And when you're talking about a city, it's kind of like a business. You can't stay the same. because if you stay the same, you're actually in reverse, because as costs go up, again, you folks, we all know it, grocery stores, building materials, airline travel, all those things, everything's going up, and so it goes up for our cities too. So that's more of a long-term plan for us, to continue to use the Plan Clayton document that we have and try to make the development smart to where it makes sense, and where eventually, we can get some businesses, we can attract some businesses. Doesn't mean there's going to be a business, out, on Haber Road, for instance, anywhere, but the rooftops are what bring businesses in, and we just don't have enough rooftops to be really attractive right now. We don't want to try to be a Huber Heights or Austin Landing, because we don't want that traffic either, but we think if we stick with our development plan that we've got, we hope that we can grow smart. And we all live here too. We don't want it to be a mess. We want it to be good. So getting back to the funding part again, it's one of those things that, like Dennis said, a couple years we're going to be in a spot, and we're trying to avoid being in a spot. We don't want that, and so again, that's the discussion that we've had. So, any other input?
Yeah, if I could only add to that, because I think we all understand this, that our state used to help out municipalities through funding for decades, many decades. That's gone. So we don't get much anymore from the state in the way of funding. And so it became a perfect storm where now we're seeing our expenditures outpace our revenue. And that's why we either have to look at obtaining different revenue. And so I think we've all discussed that. The question is how we do that, and what's the best way to do it, and when do we do it. And it all comes into play. Development is part of that, but we can't wait, 5-6 years for that to happen. We're going to be broke in 2 years if we don't do something. So that's something we all need to consider.
Anything else from any other council members? I'm sorry, we're kind of rambling on here. We didn't have a script. This part was really meant for only discussion. So, anything else from anyone? No, Tina, Greg, anything?
I guess the only thing I'd like to add is if Amanda could have Kevin email us some figures in regards to where the income tax needs to be with the tax credit reduction given back to residents. If you could get that to us, yeah. And then we can maybe, we're going to have one more meeting in May, then we'll have one meeting in June, so we'll have to act on it in June for the first time.
And Kenny, along those lines, am I correct that I don't think there's an appetite for anything dealing with property tax increases?
I think the voters and the community kind of showed us that on Tuesday. Well, yeah. There's no appetite for that.
But even before that, I don't think anybody up here was looking at that as a first choice.
No, that wasn't, no.
It wouldn't be
Police and fire levies are on real estate, though, Dennis.
I'm sorry, what?
Police and fire levies are real estate tax.
So the ones now, but it wasn't real estate.
I agree with that also. It wouldn't be my first choice, but I think what makes it a little bit better choice for me, if I hear anything, it's the complaints about the 50% credit. I don't hear much else, but I hear a lot about that, and so that makes it a little bit more appealing to me, to me personally. So, but I think we're all open to any and all options.
And then if you could add maybe the breakdown of how it will go towards police, fire, infrastructure?
Yes, we can do that. It would depend on how ballot language was structured. I mean, because like we have now, our ballot language is that 1/3 of that goes towards capital funding. If council wanted to do that, where you would separate out and say how much each goes to each fund, you could do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it's something that you could do, and we can look at both.
So it wouldn't be problematic for Kevin to move the funds if we didn't have it for police?
No,
Okay.
right. If it goes into the general fund, we can move it to any of the funds.
Okay, cool. And I'm okay with that. I would think that would be easier for Kevin.
One of the things that came up in the past discussions about finances was the discussion that we had, or the information we had, which is the reason why potentially having Phil Plummer here, in 2 weeks? Is House Bill 1 dead as far as the way it was structured?
Yes, the way the previous House Bill 1 was structured is dead.
If we could find out, and maybe Phil Plummer can explain that or give us some insight, and how House Bill 1 would impact the outside funding sources that we had been getting, and what would be contributed to the communities. Because this is one of those things that the state has impacted on local communities as far as how they've decreased the funding that comes back to local communities, and has overall impacted what we're talking about right now. Local government fund used to be, for instance, like $1 million a year we'd get, and they cut it by 75%. So when you're suddenly trying to balance your budget for $1 million, and suddenly you turn around and you now have the budget for $250,000, when your cost expenses go up like everyone else's household is, what do? So you're trying to make your money stretch the best you can. In the meantime, the state's trying to find new ways of cutting back on how much they're contributing back to local communities. And there's House Bill 1 was one of these things that had a number of different impacts in terms of how monies were coming back to communities through tax rollbacks and local government fund, and how they gave assistance to public safety, and just a number of other things, and how they said, well, we're going to cut taxes for everybody, but at the same time, local communities are suffering, and they're telling everybody, well, just pass more property tax. And I don't think that's something that persons are comfortable with doing, because who wants to pay more property tax on top of what you're already paying? And plus, the state just recently announced that they're going to do a your property is going to be now reevaluated, and potentially looking at increased value. Now, what's going to have that impact on top of your property tax, on top of what we're already talking about? So we're trying to be mindful of what things cost, and our money source basically is you, the community, and we have to be good stewards of what we're doing. And there's maybe some really good, quick, easy, fast answers, but in the long term, those fast, easy things aren't going to solve our problems in the long term. We have to find the long-term solutions. So that's basically what we're talking about, is how do we find long-term solutions to not only the problem that we have, but a lot of the communities in this area also have. So we're not unique. It's just some of the things are impacting us maybe a little faster than others. But
Amanda, I don't know if you can maybe reach out to OML tomorrow and let us know in your weekly update about House Bill 57 that passed today that increases the homestead exemption to go along with inflation. If they could get us some numbers or how that will potentially benefit residents, that would be good to learn more about.
I can do that.
I saw it hasn't been voted on in the House, but it cleared committee today in the House, so it was on the news earlier.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was in the OML update for tomorrow. So
Fantastic, thank you.
Anything else?
I move we close the workshop.
Second.
second.
Mr. Gorman motions that we close the workshop. Second by Mr. Merkel. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we are, since